Good morning. Can y'all hear me okay? Okay. We're so excited to have Michael here with us today, and Rachel and Emmeline are going to introduce him.
Good morning. My name is Emmeline Terry. I'm a second-year art director.
I'm Rachel Curry. I'm a second-year copywriter.
So why are we all here today?
To make ads?
But why are we really here?
To make money?
But why are we really here?
Because we crave human connection?
Exactly. See, sometimes you have to keep asking questions until you get to the truth. But the great thing about the truth is that everyone has the potential to say something true.
All of us. And when we say something true, it gives us the ability to connect. We all want to connect. And if we can sell some stuff while we're at it, then great.
Our speaker today is a strategist who's led teams on some of the most iconic campaigns in the last decade.
We're talking Arby's, we're talking Cheerios, we're talking Dos Equis.
And what makes these campaigns really great is that they all say something so true about each of the brands.
But sometimes it takes work to get to the truth. And that's where inspiration comes in. If you have the ability to inspire someone else, that's powerful. And that's what makes a great leader. Great leaders inspire people to tell the truth.
So here today to talk to us about leadership, inspiration, and maybe a little bit about ads is Michael Fanuele.
Thank you, guys. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Is anybody in a rush? Are we good? All right, we're going to start by doing something deeply awkward. We're just going to be quiet, and we're going to listen to this song for about a minute that came out 50 years ago. 50 years old this song is. So let's just...
Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Take your protein pills and put your helmet on. Ground control to Major Tom. Commencing countdown, engines on. Check ignition and may God's love be with you.
That is my favorite climax in the history of music. I don't know about you guys, but just the countdown, the theme, the twangy guitar. David Bowie does a version of that live in Santa Monica, and it's acoustic. So he does all of that with his voice, and it's just weird and amazing. And I just want to rocket ship myself after I hear that. Now I love music, and we're going to talk a lot about music today. But I know nothing about it. Like, I can't sing a note in tune or on key, but I learned a lot by talking to some scientists in the course of writing this book. And what I learned is that every climax, from Handel's Messiah to the Beatles to Ed Sheeran, whatever, every climax has certain sonic properties in common. So it gets louder, the beat gets faster, the timbre gets rougher. Musicologists say that climaxes occupy more pitch density, whatever that means. But the cool thing is all of those sonic properties are the same exact sonic properties as a human scream, a terrified human scream. Now that's essentially the way that music works. It takes natural, normal human sounds, sighs, cries, laughs, screams, and it reconstitutes them and presents them to the world in an artful way. Keep that in mind. Mary Oliver is this amazing poet. You guys probably know this verse. She passed away last year, and it asks a pretty fundamental question. You know, why are you here? And it tells us life is precious. But my favorite part of this verse is that word wild. Right? It's a reminder that life isn't just short and valuable, but there's something sort of animalistic and energetic about it. What I want you guys to think about and sort of keep in mind, jot down in front of you, whatever, but in the course of our talking today, what I want you guys to think about is something you want to achieve. Right? It could be personal, it could be about school, it could be about life, family, friends, whatever. It could be small, it could be big, but just kind of get something in your head that you want to achieve. And I should take a step back and just tell you guys how fucking stoked I am to be here. Like, I have spent the last 4 or 5 weeks doing this weird, overwhelming kind of book tour, and every day I wake up and I'm like shocked and excited and honored, and like, this is my last stop for a few weeks, and there is no place else I would rather be than here. I mean, every time I'm down at VCU, your faces, your eyes, your spirits, your energy are just so freaking good and so welcoming. Like, this just feels like there's nowhere else I'd rather be. So thank you. Now, you got the thing in your head that you want to do. As a strategist, as marketers, as creative people, this is a question that sort of rightfully obsesses us, right? How do we make people move? Arguably, this is the fundamental question of being a human being from the beginning of time, right? Anything you want to do, that thing you want to accomplish, you're likely going to have to get somebody, maybe yourself, but somebody to do something that they otherwise might not have done. It's change. And centuries ago, this was pretty easy, right? You used a stick, used a club, go pick berries or I will hit you with my club. About 2,300 years ago, this guy, Aristotle, came up with a better idea. He said, we are rational animals. We shouldn't beat each other with sticks and stones. We should persuade each other. Right? In a series of lectures that were published as a book called Rhetoric, he talks about reason and logic and argument and all the rules. All the classics are there, like the if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C, right there in Rhetoric. And essentially for 2,300 years, we have bought into this. The way you get people to do things is you change their mind. You give them a proposition, you give them an argument, you give them evidence, reason to believe, you use logic, they change their mind and their behavior follows. In the corporate world, this is sort of best expressed by these ugly things, right? Bullet points. One of the two founders, this blows me away, one of the two founders, designers of PowerPoint, said that his goal was to give power to the bullet point. Like, how terrifying is that? But he has. And you'll see, as soon as you start dealing with consultants, they come in and it's look at all my bullet points. I must be right. Look at all my bullet points. You must do what I'm telling you to do. This is Aristotelian logic. It's argument, it's evidence, it's the accumulation of facts until your brain succumbs. And unfortunately, if you just squint a little, you see it in the marketing that's all around us. Now, I hate 99% of marketing out there. And I think the reason I hate it is because at heart, so much of it is an argument. It's what I call marketing. Our thing is better than the thing next to us. Right? Our toothpaste gets your teeth whiter, our car is safer, our jeans make you feel sexier. But it's a form of an argument supported by, what's that phrase we use? Reasons to believe. Here are the reasons to believe our toothpaste gets your teeth whiter and cleaner and brighter. I shouldn't pick on my old employer. I worked at General Mills for a hopeful few years, but I will. I was walking down the aisles of Target, and I saw the brand new package design for Fiber One. And you could imagine the millions of dollars and millions of hours that went into this. But look at all the information this is giving you, right? For starters, fiber. Fiber One. Fiber is a good thing. It keeps you regular. It suppresses your appetite, which is a good thing if you're dieting, and you should know that it's 90 calories, just 90 calories. But don't you think this is diet food that's crummy and crappy and tastes like cardboard? Because look at that picture. It is rich, indulgent, chocolate decadence. And if none of that persuades you, now with more drizzle. Now with more drizzle. This is bullet points in design form. And again, you just have to squint at most marketing to see most marketing is exactly this. The problem with it is that it doesn't work. And we know it doesn't work because we've read the books or we watched the TED Talks, right? We know that we blink, that we're nudged. We know about System 1, intuitive, unconscious thinking. We know we are weird, odd ducks. And even when we think we're being oh so rational, we're not. That's our brain justifying decisions that are made deep, deep in our gut. This is especially true with the world of marketing. So the IPA, the International Practitioners of Advertising, is like the nerdy think tank of advertisingness. They're based in London. And they did this wild study where they looked at 800 cases of effective marketing. And they judged effectiveness really simply. Did it happen? Did sales increase? No bullshit about like awareness and perceptions. Like, did this happen? Did sales increase? And what they found was that emotional, what they call purely emotional advertising, is 2 times more effective than any other sort of marketing out there. Well, of course it is, you say. We know this. We're students. We didn't have to be students. We know that emotion works in marketing. Oh no. Oh no. What they compared that to was what they called balanced emotional and rational advertising, which is what most marketing is. Right? So it's the mom with the baby, and it's so sweet and sentimental, and then you cut away to the blue liquid pouring on the diapers to see which is more absorbent, right? Most advertising is a mix of rational and emotional, of functional and emotional, and they're saying that works half as good as purely emotional stuff. What's purely emotional? They talk about Apple, they talk about Cadbury Gorilla, design, fashion, stuff that doesn't ask you to think, stuff that doesn't make an argument with you, and we'll see why in a second. But Aristotle's problem was that he didn't know Daniel Kahneman. So again, I didn't read all of Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. It's big, but I got the gist. System 1 thinking is that impulsive, intuitive, fuck it, I'm just gonna do it. System 2 is, well, let's really examine the pros and cons. Should I quit my job and open a brewery? I don't know. Let's look at our bank account. Blah, blah, blah. Well, the reason Kahneman won the Nobel Prize isn't because he identified that, it's because he quantified it, right? He says that System 1 thinking, the value of that is 11 million bits of computer processing power. Again, I don't totally know what that means, but apparently that is enough computer processing power to compress the entire Library of Congress versus 50 bits of let's weigh the pros and cons. Thinking has no fucking chance. You're gonna think I'm obsessed with David Bowie, and I am. I was nervous, like, do you guys know who David Bowie is? I don't care, because I love him, and I want to share another David Bowie story with you. So when David Bowie died, there were all these tweets like Mick Jagger, Bill Clinton, Kanye, everybody's like, oh, David Bowie, you're a god, we lost you. But one stood out to me, and it was from the German government, and they're like, hey, David Bowie, thanks for bringing down the Berlin Wall. And I'm like, I don't remember that part of the story at all. But I went back and I did some research, and it's an amazing tale. So in the late 70s, David Bowie was in a bad place. He was totally strung out. He had had huge success, but he felt like his best days were behind him, floundering, totally lost. And he wanted one last shot at making his masterpiece. So he got his band, he's got his producers, and they went to this studio in West Berlin. And this studio is about, an eighth of a mile from the Berlin Wall itself. But the interesting thing is it used to be a Nazi ballroom. This is where Nazis would go and hang out and party and dance and do Nazi shit on Saturday nights. But now it was this kind of decrepit music studio. And David Bowie was so excited about one experimental number. It had like whirring synthesizers and clanking ashtrays and like shoes banging against tables and things. And as he's mixing it one night, he looks out the window and he could see the Berlin Wall. And against the wall, he sees a man and a woman going at it hot and heavy. Like they're fiercely making out. And above them, he sees some East German soldiers patrolling with their rifles. And that image of love and passion and guns and violence, that image right there enraptured him. And in about 15 minutes, he wrote all the lyrics to the song that became Heroes. We Can Be Heroes Just for One Day, which some of you might know. It's a great song. So the next day, the band comes back to the studio and David shares this with them. And the producer says, hey, I've got an idea. Let's use this giant ballroom for all it's got. With each verse, when we're recording this song, I'm going to take the microphone, I'm going to move it 10 feet away, and then 10 feet away and 10 feet away, so that by the very end of this song, for the microphone to pick up your voice, you need to be shouting, screaming at the top of your lungs. And if you listen to the original recording, that's exactly what happens. It went on, it became an amazing hit. 1987, David Bowie goes to West Berlin to do a concert. He does it right there at the Berlin Wall, stone's throw from this studio where he had that moment. And in the course of the concert, he's told that thousands of East Berliners had gathered on the other side of the wall. Thousands, right? They can't see him, he can't see them, but they could hear him and he could hear them. And for his encore, for his last song, he does Heroes. And he said it was the most profound musical experience of his life. He said it felt like a prayer, like he was talking to the spirits, the souls. And 2 weeks later, Ronald Reagan came to that same space. And Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. And a few months later, the wall came down. It was torn down. And I might be totally naive, I'm cool being naive, but I am going to believe that Bowie got that done, not Reagan, right? I'm going to believe that because I know, if I know anything, is that music moves us and it moves us. It changes our moods, our feelings, our attitudes, and then our behaviors. It makes us dance, it puts us to sleep, it makes us cry, it makes us wanna mess around hot and heavy against walls. Like music has a way of capturing, and it's not just personal, it's societal as well, right? So Aristotle's friend Plato in the Republic talks about the power of music to shape the minds of young people and to rouse the spirits of armies. But he goes on to say he thinks music should be regulated by the government. Like we regulate like drugs and things. Like music should be, because it's dangerous. And if music gets in the wrong person's hands, whoa, societal upheaval. Right? And of course he's right. When you think about the history of America, for example, every time there is societal progress and foment and rebellion, there is music. There are spirituals on plantations. There's Dylan in the 60s. In the 70s, just listening to disco at Studio 54 was an act of LGBTQ rebellion. It was a political act. I mean, Plato was right. Music moves people. And there's a study, an amazing study, blows my mind. Done about 15 years ago. They took a huge team of telemarketers in Japan and they divided them in half. And before their shift, half listened to Eye of the Tiger and half didn't. Those who listened to Eye of the Tiger closed more sales deals. That's weird. That's fact. And this study has been replicated dozens of times across cultures, people who know the language, who don't know the language, people who have associations with the movie Rocky, people who have never heard of it. And the same thing happens every time. There is something about the propulsive nature of that song that makes people drive, that makes people work harder than they otherwise were. Here's what's amazing to me, though. I don't think you need to be a musician to conjure that sort of power to make people move. If you believe anything I'm saying, if you believe that music at heart is an expression of human emotion, cries, laughs, screaming across ballrooms, getting excited about people making love against a wall, if you believe that, you'll believe Miles Davis, right? Anybody can play. The note's 20%, the attitude of the motherfucker playing it is everything. Do you guys know what mondegreens are? This was my favorite part of writing this book, was learning about mondegreens. They're amazing. It is when you think you know the lyrics to a song, but you've gotten them totally wrong, but you're sure they're right? So I grew up, and again, I'm like older than all of you guys, but there was a band called the Eurythmics that had this song, and I thought for years that the lyrics were "Mama Bear wants to use you," and that's not it. Google "Eye of the Tiger" misheard lyrics. It is the most Mondegreen heavy song ever, right? People think it's High with the Kaiser, Ivan the Tiger, toasting his bread in the night. Like I just watched Rocket Man on a flight last week. People really think that Elton John is saying "Hold me closer, Tony Danza." He's not. He's not saying that. But here's the thing: none of it matters. You know, my favorite examples. I grew up with Whitney Houston's version of "I Will Always Love You." Power ballad from an amazing diva saying to the dude she's leaving that she will always love him. She will always be committed to him. It is passion. It is a promise. Until you hear the original Dolly Parton version, right? Which is essentially her breaking up with her manager who she was sleeping with. And it's pity. She's like, if you need to believe that I'm always going to love you, that's fine. You go ahead and believe that, but I got to get out of here. I got places to go. Right? The same words, the same lyrics, radically different meanings. So I guess I'm talking a lot about music, but this is really what I'm talking about. Inspiration etymologically comes from a word meaning to breathe in. But it's used at the beginning of the King James Bible when God breathes life into the clay of Adam and Eve. And that's what inspiration does, right? It brings things to life. Masterpieces, countries, companies, religions. You know, I'm sure that each of us in our own way has been inspired, right? The words of a teacher, a coach, a friend, a poem, a movie, a song, like something hits you and you feel stronger. You feel stronger than you did just a couple minutes before. You feel like a giant. You could crush whatever is in your way. And don't just take my fluffy words for it. Bain & Company did a study where they looked at hundreds of companies around the world, and they quantified that an inspired person is 225% more productive. They produce more than an uninspired person. And you don't need Bain & Company because you know that. You work harder, you work nights, you work weekends when you're excited, when you're stoked about the thing in front of you. I've been speaking to a lot of companies, and I really believe the problem with modern work isn't that we work too much, it's that we don't work inspired enough. So what I like to talk about is what I call the inspiration imperative. If you want to do anything, if you want to do that thing that I asked you to get in your mind, if you want to crack marketing that makes consumers move and turns a market on its head, whatever you want to do, you must learn how to arouse the emotions of people, of yourself, of somebody, how to arouse emotions to the point of conviction, to the point of action. It's only the last 7 or 8 years that scientists have really begun to contend with inspiration and to figure out how it works. And there's this part of our brain called mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are the neurons that help us learn by replicating what we see in the world. So a little baby sees her mother's mouth move, mirror neurons fire, her mouth moves, she learns to speak. It's awesome. What scientists have discovered is that mirror neurons also mirror emotions. They mirror feelings. So when you see somebody sad, you feel sad. When you see somebody angry, you feel tense and stressed. When you see Steph Curry, intense focus, locked in on the court, you nudge to the edge of your seat. They're mirrored. Well, one neuroscientist calls them Gandhi neurons because they are literally the biological mechanism that allows us to share one another's feelings. They are literally the biological mechanism that creates empathy. I feel something, you're feeling it too. So if you want to inspire, just fill the air, fill the world with feeling. And it almost doesn't matter what the feeling is. If you're sad, confused, bewildered, frustrated, angry, terrified, sad, stoked, joy, like fill it. Although probably the most powerful emotion for stimulating mirror neurons is passion, right? So there's a reason we all talk about Nike, because they are the best at what they do. Nike has spent billions of dollars in marketing and has never once given you a bullet point. They've never once told you what makes them better than anything next to them. All they've done is shared their passion for sports and athletes. And your brain goes, well, if they're passionate about that, man, they probably make really good stuff for those people. Passion is so powerful because it makes you vulnerable. When you say you're passionate about something, that's an opinion. I'm passionate about Vampire Weekend. That'd be terrible. You'd be like, that's like middle-aged dad alt rock. That sucks, right? But my passion, I'm vulnerable, and this thing happens when we're vulnerable. People lean in. Like, think about people you might have fallen in love with. We usually fall in love with people at a moment when they're expressing their passion for something they love, a place they're from, a thing they do, a dream they have. When people love, we become glued. Mirror neurons. Now, you will soon learn, I hope you don't, but I'm afraid you will, that there are way too many places out in the corporate world where sharing feelings is something you're not supposed to do. Right? Every company talks about purpose and they have mindfulness retreats, but there's always a point in every meeting where they say, well, let's think about this rationally. Well, let's weigh the pros and cons. Well, what does the data say? Two of the ugliest words ever are chill out, and you hear it all this. It's like, how fucking dare you, in a moment of human expression of passion, try to cap that? But it is a radical act to share feelings in the corporate world, especially so for women. Right? Women have been told for eons, don't be so emotional at work. It'll hold you back. I fucking hope that that's changing. In the book, I've got two simple little exercises to help us become more comfortable, more fluent in the language of feeling. One is something that I'm sure you do absolutely every day, and that is eat something emotional. Right? Take 2 or 3 minutes and put in your body something odd or strange or unusual. I've got a list of things. Some of you will fucking hate, some you might love, some you might know, some you won't. That's the point. The second thing that I encourage you to do is promise yourself that every day you will start at least one sentence with these words: I feel. I feel. And do it in a moment when you know you're not supposed to have a feeling, where that's not cool in the moment. I feel confused, I feel bewildered, I feel excited, I feel sad, I feel angry, whatever it is. You'll be shocked at how quickly the world around you reconstitutes itself. You can't argue with somebody's feelings. You can just respond to them. Here's the problem, though. For all of that talk about be passionate, be emotional, express yourself, the world will change, it's not quite that simple. Because scientists have also discovered what cracks that mirror, what breaks that magic transfer of emotion. 2 years ago at UCLA, these scientists hooked up the brains of people watching, sports fans watching their favorite teams, to fMRI machines to see what the magnetic resonance was, what was happening in their brains when they're watching their favorite team. And it's intense, it's emotional. The brain looks an awful lot like it does when it's inspired. The thinky prefrontal cortex is very quiet. All that reptilian stuff in the back of your brain is kind of on fire. It's intense. The thing that ruins it, that kills it, that flatlines it, color commentary and play-by-play analysis. As soon as some fucking know-it-all starts explaining shit to you, you're out. And let me be clear, this is an on-off thing. We want to believe, like rational and emotional advertising, we want to believe that there's a thing called balance, that there's a thing called, there is not. When your prefrontal cortex is working hard, literally, biologically, you cannot feel intensely. Right? The example I use is, well, I'll give you a weird example. It's tortured, but you'll get it. So imagine you're having a party, right? At your place, you're hosting a party, and it is the greatest party anyone's ever been to. Everybody's beautiful, nobody's stressed, the toils of school are left behind, the drinks are great, the music is even better, song after song, people are dancing, they just feel like their most awesome selves. Right, we've all been at this party, even if only for like 10 seconds, but we've had that moment. And then you hear, and you ignore it because you're smart. Play the next song, people feel even, and then you hear, and you know what it is. It is your motherfucking neighbor asking you to turn the music down. But if you do, if you open that door, if you turn the music down, the party is over, right? That magic moment is punctured. The other example is exercise. Like, I don't really exercise, it's painful, but apparently that's the point. Right? Or this trainer told me that comfort and progress are opposite forces in exercise. Like, if you feel comfortable, you're not making progress. It's either or. So thinking, that's a long way of saying, thinking gets in the way of feeling. It stops feeling. At the heart of everything I've learned is this weird insight that persuasion and inspiration are opposite and antagonistic forces. Right? The more you try to reason, logic, argue, bullet point, explain, the less likely you are to move people to do anything meaningful. The more you try to logic and explain, the less likely you are to move people. So the inspiration equation, if you want to inspire, this is what you got to do, people. You've got to be passionate, but in a way that extracts just enough reason from the whole proposition, from the whole situation, that what you want doesn't get stuck in that sand pit of the prefrontal cortex. Now this is the part where I've got to tell you that I don't think you should be psychotic, right? Like, I believe in facts. I believe in logic, I believe in reason, I believe in data, I believe in all of that stuff to help you figure out what you want to do, to help you get to your strategy. But when it is go time, that shit gets in the way. We'll talk about this in a little bit, but as a creative agent, the guy who worked at we make the biggest mistake in the world when we try to sell bold and brave creative ideas to clients with a run-up of 30 slides of PowerPoint. We're giving those nervous clients all the data and evidence and reason they need to confirm their anxiety and their couragelessness and to not buy that work. Well, I'll talk about that in a minute. But I guess what I'm saying is we've got to figure out a way to avoid the strategy trap, that place where brave ideas go to die. Now, I did the Arby's campaign with Jeff Kling when I was at Fallon, and we did a lot of number crunching. We won the pitch with one slide. One slide. Here's the slide. This is the fast food brain. Okay? 41% of all moments, occasions in the fast food world are burgers, 9% is Mexican, 11% is pizza. Arby's stood for roast beef, which was less than 1%, like a little pimple on the back of the brain. All right, if your brand stands for roast beef, you are hosed. You're in trouble. But look at this. Meat is 68%. What do you want to be, Arby's? Want to be that? Or do you want to be that? Do you want to be that? Or do you want to be that? We won the pitch with one slide. Now, there was an enormous amount of data and reasoning and analytics that went into this, but sharing all of that wouldn't have gotten us very far. We appealed to something more emotional. I want the more. I want the bigger one, the client said. So I guess what I'm saying is we've got to find ways, be it our marketing or ourselves, we have to find ways of our shit showing up in the world where it is the leap, it is not the logic. Logic can help you baby step and make incremental progress, but who the fuck wants to step like a baby, right? The big, good stuff is going to happen when we inspire. So how do you do that? I wrote a book, and it's got 6 skills of inspiration. And if you guys want to not eat dinner for a couple of nights and buy the book, that would be awesome. But you don't have to. I'll share it all with you. The first skill, let's jump around here. The first skill is all about ambition, right? People are not inspired to do small things. We're inspired to do grand things, delusional things. So Al Gore said he wanted to reduce carbon emissions 20% when he was running for president. That's pretty ambitious, but he lost. Barack Obama said he wanted to lower the tides of the oceans. That's delusional. He won. And he didn't win just because of that. He won because he had a way of framing everything in epic, grand terms. We are the ones we've been waiting for. Right? We are soldiers in this march of progress. And it's exciting to people to do big things because the bigger your goal, the bigger the thing in front of you, the more you become an underdog. And being an underdog is the greatest thing in the world to be because you gotta be that before you become a hero, and we all wanna be heroes in our own mind. Make people underdogs. Study after study shows that athletes, Olympic level athletes who give themselves impossible goals end up coming closer to those impossible goals than the ones who go, oh, I want to get 3% faster or 2% stronger. We'll explain why later. So essentially there's this spectrum, right? This stuff is fine, it's just not inspiring. And yet this is the language of marketing, right? Let's grow our business 2% next quarter. Let's launch the brand to a new market with a new demographic. Let's reposition ourselves for fuck that. Let's inspire the athlete in everybody. Let's make every woman feel beautiful, right? Let's democratize fashion. That's the heart and soul of Target, for example. I'll tell you the quick story of this guy. The client, Dos Equis, came to the agency with the tightest brief possible. They said, we want to be the #2 premium imported Mexican beer in America. #2 premium imported Mexican beer in America. Corona was going to be #1, and they're about chill and sunshine. And we're going to be #2, and we're about nighttime and adventure. But as a planner on the team quickly pointed out, like, you don't get to choose that, Dos Equis. Like, no one goes to a bar and says, can I have a Corona or the #2? Right? They go to a bar, I'm told, and there are lots of amazing things to drink. And they have them all. They have a shitty beer and a craft beer and a glass of wine, and they have some Jameson and the Jägermeister shots, and maybe they're having scotch or a martini, all in the course of one Saturday or Thursday, whatever it is. So we shifted the brief. We shifted the brief to delusional land. Instead of being the #2 premium imported Mexican beer in America, be the most interesting thing in the bar. Right? More interesting than the other drinks, more interesting than the people, the stories, the jokes, the music, be the most interesting thing in a bar. That's delusional. But that's how you birth the most interesting man in the world, not just some other clever dude in a clever beer ad. So again, we know this, but when we're contending with brands or even ourselves, it's not what makes me more than the thing next to me, but why am I here? And the tool that I like to use to really figure that out is thinking about my villain. Like, what's the thing standing in my way, and how can I make that villain as fierce and gruesome as possible, as impossible to beat as possible? Phil Knight was asked, who Nike's competition is, and he said, gravity. How fucking cool is that? Like, I want to fight gravity. So be delusional. The next thing, this is a huge one for ad agencies in particular. It is really hard to inspire when the moment of inspiration looks like yesterday and the day before and the day before. There needs to be disorientation to create a new sense of possibilities. Do you guys know who this is? Before Johnny Depp was Willy Wonka, Gene Wilder was Willy Wonka. And the story of him taking this role I love. So the director knew he wanted Gene Wilder, and he called him and he said, will you be Willy Wonka? And Gene said, one condition. I want to write my opening scene and I want it to be the first thing we film. Director said, easy. And you might remember that scene, right? All the kids and the golden tickets and people are gathered around the old chocolate factory. The door creaks open and out comes Willy Wonka, who people hadn't seen in ages. And he's a decrepit old hunched man and he's walking with a cane, and it's the awkward, longest tracking shot in the whole movie. And he gets to a point where his cane gets stuck in the cobblestone and he goes to take the next step and there's no cane, and he tilts forward. He's about to fall on his face, but he does a somersault, he does a flip, and he jumps up, and hooray, people are thrilled. It's the good and the great Willy Wonka. People go, Gene, what was that all about? Like, why do you do that? And he said, well, these kids who I was acting with were never going to see me before that moment. I wasn't going to meet them backstage as Gene Wilder. I wasn't going to meet them backstage as Willy Wonka. The first time they would lay eyes on Willy Wonka was in that moment when that door opened with cameras rolling. And I wanted to be sure that they would never know if I were lying or telling the truth. Right? I wanted to fuck with them because I knew it would get a more authentic response from them. You gotta fuck with people if you want to inspire them. Which brings us to Lincoln, right? This is such a weird picture, right? So Nancy Cohen is this brilliant historian at Harvard. And in her book about leadership, she talks about Lincoln, and she uses this word that just glared out at me. She calls him gross. Like Lincoln was great, and he was like dirty, and like his suit was tattered, and his stovepipe hat was a mess. Like he was kind of like a dirtbag. He was kind of gross. And he shows up at Gettysburg, right? Deaths all around to give his talk. And as you know, he begins that talk by saying 7 years ago. Now, when I was growing up, I thought that's the way people spoke in the 1860s. You know, I'm 8 years old or whatever. It's like, they didn't. They hadn't spoken that way for centuries. In fact, it's an allusion to a verse from the book of Psalms, literally centuries before. It was weird for him to do that. In fact, and I know this is hard to swallow, but Lincoln beginning the Gettysburg Address with 7 years ago is almost as odd as Trump beginning a speech with 7 years ago. But it's a moment of what's happening here. And it is intentional, it is on purpose, because what Lincoln is saying is that what is about to occur here is extraordinary, is unusual, the moment of disorientation. This happens in fashion marketing all the time. Now, as a planner, I'm supposed to hate fashion marketing because there's no idea. I fucking love it. Like, I don't know what is happening in this ad, right? The guy's got a goat, but I want to be there. I so want to be there. It's not asking me to think about anything. There's not a bullet point in sight. I love it. There was a study done at the University of Tokyo to answer a very simple question. Can you make people more creative? Now, all the creatives amongst you are probably going, no, I was born this way. But you can. You can make people more creative. And you know how you do it? You hit them with creative things. I won't go into detail, but again, the more you consume a steady diet of weird disorientatingness, the more you can produce it. The more you could produce it, the more you could break rules. And here, I'll go into this cul-de-sac for a sec. So when I was at General Mills, I ran their first creative review of agencies in 64 years. I had McCann and Saatchi forever. And we probably met with 35 agencies. 34 of them, and these are agencies I love and admire and respect, and I love the people, and some were former colleagues, and I adore the work, but like great places. Most of them walk into the room, 6 to 8 people, they sit around a conference room table, they introduce themselves one by one, they say they don't want to talk about themselves, they then show us PowerPoint and where their offices are located and what their capabilities are and what their philosophy is. You know, we believe in culture or whatever. They show us 2 case studies with relevant insights for our business, and then they all say the same thing. Oh, it would be so presumptuous of us to have a point of view about your business. I mean, we hardly know you, but we've done a little research and want to share some hunches. Right? 34 out of 30. And what happens in that moment? You guys are marketers. You know, when a human being is faced with commodities, they exaggerate small differences. So we never called the agencies by their name when we were deliberating. We talked about the douchebag agency and the Save the World agency and the techie agency, right? My favorite was the Scooby-Doo kids like van agency. Like they were always high, but they were great. They were wonderful. They were like the Scooby-Doo kids. If you show up in the way that is expected, that is conformist, you surrender your right to be special. You surrender your right to differentiate yourself. So break some rules, kiddos. Attitude, this is a good one. So we talked a lot about music. It is so important, and this is not a job for copywriters. This is a job for people who use words, all of us. It is so important to try your hardest to take the things you say and make them hooky, make them earworms, make them stick with people. The Arby's story, I was thrilled, I was so proud to crack that strategy. I thought it was brilliant. We have the meat. That was the brief, that was the idea. I share it with Jeff Kling, genius creative partner. Jeff, we have the meat. This is it. This is good. It's going to win us the pitch. It's going to change their, and he goes, that is the worst idea I've ever seen in my life. And he adds an S at the end. We have the meats, because now it's good. right? He took it from a claim to a lyric, right? He took it from a fact to we have the meat as a fact to we have the meat. It's a condition or something. I don't know what it is, but it's weird. It's odd, and it's important that we all do that, even especially with our strategies. You know, the other thing we would say all the time on Cheerios that became a sort of mantra for us is we were trying to remind people that as we were taking shit out of Cheerios, like sugar and artificial ingredients and artificial preservatives, we were making more natural. We're trying to remind people that it started as oats. It started as produce. And somebody said, nobody gets mad at kale when you cook it. Why do we get mad at oats? And that became like our thing. Nobody gets mad at kale when you cook it. It's so important for all of us to find those things that get sticky. But don't worry if you can't. Don't worry if words don't matter. Because if you believe anything I said before, it's really the attitude behind them, right? So there's this stupid game that I invented in my book that I call Muse Karaoke. And the idea is really simple. Take the thing you want to do. Take the thing in your head. Take the brief that you're working on, whatever it happens to be. Take the thing in your head. I want to quit my job and open a cupcake shop. And then next to it, put a list of artists. And they don't have to be artists you love, just artists you sort of know, you understand what they're about, you get their vibe. So it's, I don't know, Taylor Swift, Metallica, Willie Nelson, whatever, Diplo. Cool. And then just go through the stupid exercise of how would Metallica launch a cupcake shop? How would Willie Nelson launch a cupcake shop? And none of those answers are right. But it's just a stupid exercise to make your brain playful, to relax your thinking processes until your voice starts to emerge. And that'll be a voice of emotion. Let's talk about, this is a good one. I like this one. It is really hard to inspire people if you don't love them. And I don't want to say respect or admire. I want to say like love. Like if people don't feel like you see something amazing and lovable in them, that you don't believe in them, you're not on their side, you're not rooting for them, they ain't gonna move for you. You know, one of my least favorite phrases in the whole corporate world, maybe the whole world, is when people say, I would never ask you to do something I wouldn't do myself. I have spent my life asking people to do things I wouldn't do myself because they're better at it than I am. They've got a power that I don't. They're good at something, a skill that I don't have. It's another mistake that I think agencies make all the time. They show up to clients and they go, well, here's your problem and here's how we're gonna solve it. They show up like a fucking pharmaceutical ad. Don't do that. Show up to clients and say, here's what's awesome about you. Here's what's freaking amazing about you. And you might have forgotten about that. Let's dust it off. Let's reburnish it. So love people, that's important. Especially for yourself. You know, of all these sort of skills of inspiration, the one that's really gonna motivate you to crush your thing is being able to look in the mirror and go, here's my superpower. The last thing is about authenticity. Now, over the course of working at agencies and clients and whatnot, I put together this tool that is based on literally tens of thousands of quantitative interviews. And brands win when they display both of these virtues, when they have a sense of authenticity, when they're the real deal, they're honest, they're reliable, they're trustworthy, they do what they say, they're endorsed by other people, it's real. But also when they've got a sense of dynamism or momentum or energy, right? Most brands are in this area down here. It's like the Sears area, like I trust you and I have no interest in you. And brands like Facebook are in the upper left, like all razzle dazzle and exciting, but I don't want you to have anything from me, right? The same is true of people. When we show up as ourselves dramatically, we win. We reconstitute the world around us. So how do you do that? Stupid advice, hey, be yourself. Like, I don't know, I have kids and it's like, be yourself. Like, I don't know what to do with that. Luckily, this guy does. Carl Jung was a psychologist who studied with Freud. And he talks about the shadow parts of our personality. Right? He says that each of us have parts of ourselves that we're embarrassed by. Maybe we're lazy or ambitious or egotistical or lustful or and what we do is we try to hide that stuff. But don't do that. Don't do that, he says. When you suppress that stuff, it comes out sideways, it's fucked up, you become Hitler. Don't do that. He says, individuate. Take your darkest shadows and integrate them with your lightest and brightest bits. And when that happens, you will find the one-of-a-kind, uniquely you, unlike anybody else person. Now this is something brands need to do, I think, if they want to be magnetic, which is find their shadows. And it is so hard. It is so hard, because remember what I said, every brand out there is saying, I'm better, I am greater. Think of the guts it takes for a brand to go, our pizza sucks, and we're going to spend a few years trying to make it better. Right, the very first assignment I ever worked on in advertising was for ragu pasta sauce. And this goes way back. You guys probably don't remember this, but Ragu and another brand called Prego were always in this battle about which was richer and chunkier and heartier. And all the ads were like these side-by-side comparisons with wooden spoons and gloppy tomato sauce going on mounds of spaghetti. Like, you only need to do like one focus group with moms to realize the last thing any kid wants is rich, chunky, hearty, and like they want like red water on noodles, right? So we're like, hey, we're going to embrace your shadow, embrace the fact that you're weak and watery. Like, this is a good thing. And we called it Yes Food, Yes for Kids. Jerry Graff 2 years ago did a brilliant campaign for this brand on the back of that insight. This is the reward for the tough lives kids lead. And I don't even know if Prego still exists, but after that moment, after they embraced their shadow, they changed the entire marketplace. I guess what I'm saying is, whether it's your brand, whether it's your agency, whether it's your team, whether it's yourself, whether you're a marketer or a coach or a parent or a friend, like whatever, the more you make things personal, the more you are able to emote and express your loves, your hates, your passions, the more effective you'll be at getting the best out of the people around you. I want to just end with this is the sort of the moment that began this whole journey for me, right? So a while back, I was forced to go see U2. Like, I hated it. I thought it was a loud, egotistical, pontificating, like, loud. I just fucking hated Bono. But it was my best friend's bachelor party, and I was his best man, and he loves U2. Have any of you seen U2 live? It's the older people. No, that was not. Just, yeah. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So I went and I was like determined to be miserable. Like my arms were crossed. And YouTube Live, I mean, it is, you should go see it. It is rock and roll church, right? Bono's got a flag of South Africa and he's preaching and he's saying we got to march in Selma and Kilimanjaro and we got to oppose racism and sexism and homophobia and HIV and probably allergies, like you name it. Like Bono's like, I'm fucking against it. And yet I found myself like, my arms were in the air. I like want to sign up at the Amnesty International table. I want to quit my job and go to Africa and like suckle children. I'm like, what the fuck is happening to me? Like, how do I go from hating this guy to wanting to change my life? And I came back down to earth, but I became really interested in inspiration, how it works. That's when all this started. And Bono was asked, he was like, dude, how do you do it? How do you stand on stages night after night, inspire the hell out of millions? You've raised billions of dollars for causes. You've dazzled world leaders into forgiving debts of third world nations. Like Bono, how do you do it? And he said, I don't. He said, you put on the leather pants and the pants start telling you what to do, which could be the best thing Bono's ever said, right? And I like this has become like a bit of a philosophy, a bit of a mantra for me, and hopefully for you as well. I mean, maybe not literally, or maybe literally. You know, Kristen Cavallo was like, I always wear leather pants to pitches. So I was like, of course, that's awesome. That's why you win. But mentally, metaphorically, figuratively, when you've got to inspire, just get that sense of rock star swagger because you deserve to. You deserve to. But more than that, when you do, things become more delusional. Things become more disorientating. You express yourself in odder ways that break the rules. You figure out what it is that you love about it. You're aware of an audience. And hopefully you show up where the parts of you that are most interesting become the parts that are most magnified. And when you do all of that, you inspire, you change the world. So there's another point of view. That's my favorite Onion headline. The rest of you two is perfectly fine with Africans starving. Isn't that a great picture? Because you know they probably feel that way, right? So that's it. That's what I got. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for having me. Do we talk? Sorry, that was long. I'm so sorry about that. I'm just looking at the time. I will. I will. All the way up the top.
Sorry, I'll try to be loud. So I love that presentation. That was awesome. Definitely grew up seeing like sort of the passion. I was like passionate and brand X and T had that you're saying with people, and that's why I wanted to do this. My only question is sometimes it feels like these days we're bombarded with people saying these emotional messages, like and simplifying messages, and it does sometimes feel exhausting, like all that's going on with the political climate right now. Because people are always just trying to tell you something simple that moves you, even if it's sometimes dangerous. And my question is just, I guess, how you feel like brand people in general can kind of find that balance, even if balance isn't
Right. Right. So everything I just talked about are things that are practiced by terrible people to exploit the masses. Right? Don't be bad. I'm sorry, the question, I didn't repeat the question. The question was, doesn't Donald Trump suck? And we're so exhausted. And isn't this what you're saying? I'm joking, but essentially the question was, it's emotionally exhausting, emotions are dangerous, they're combustible, like how do you balance all of that so that you can be sane, I think, a version of that. Yeah, I said don't be bad because it is true, but the only way you beat Donald Trump, you don't beat him with PowerPoint, right? Here's what I think is really interesting though. Emotions aren't all razzle-dazzle volcanic eruptions. Somebody like Obama, somebody like Mayor Pete, have an emotion that is about calmness, that is about confidence, that is about we got this. So emotions don't have to be fire. They could also be ice. And sometimes when the emotion is ice, it's deeply, deeply reassuring and refreshing. But it's still an emotion. Right, the advice I always give to agencies when they are pitching clients is, I spent my whole career going, what's the great idea? What's the right idea? What's the amazing? That's not how you win a pitch, right? That's the dressing, but the body of winning a pitch is about the emotional relationship you forge. And you just need to be clear about what emotional relationship you're going for, right? Some clients want a rocket ship of awesomeness. Some want a security blanket so that they don't get in trouble and they don't get fired. Some want to feel whiz-bang and techie. Others want their ego fueled at can, right? You just, and I don't know what's right and what's wrong. Like the art of pitching is figuring out what the emotional relationship is that's going to win it, but then sticking to it, being it. If I were ever pitching again, I wouldn't have a single conversation about the work or what we're bringing to the meeting until we agreed on what emotion we were trying to deliver. Do we want to be reassuring to this client? Do we want to be sexy to this client? What do we want to be emotionally? So I think it's going to be interesting to me to see how the Democratic field occupies different patches of emotional turf. It feels like there's one kind of divide between we're going to be radical and we're just going to hold on and be safe. But I mean, there are probably 30 more options, and I just hope people start playing with them and experimenting with them. I don't know if that's an answer, but all right, cool, thank you. Yeah.
So I was taking a few notes while I was listening to you, and I put it into bullet points. Can I say wait on something?
The question, which I must repeat, is I was taking notes and I put bullet points in. Awesome. You'll be less inspired. It's great. You're inhibiting your ability to leap. That's cool. This is all pass-fail, right? You'll be okay. Yeah, on the stairs.
Can you talk a little bit about how you went about doing the research to kind of like put all of these ideas together? It seems like you have like all of these ideas about like neurons and the science and everything, all of that is super rational.
Yeah.
Like what was that process like of leading into like why these emotions are so powerful?
Right. So I think, the great thing about working in ad agencies is that they become playgrounds for your thinking, for your theories, your ideas. And after that U2 experience, I was like, I want inspiration to be like I want to learn it, I want to know about that. And so I think as I bopped around agencies and clients and brands, I just started making connections. I didn't know when we were doing Dos Equis that we were being delusionally ambitious. But in hindsight, it's like, oh, that's exactly what we did. We made it ridiculous. And, oh, isn't that what Lincoln did in the Civil War by going from can't we just get along to let's free the enslaved people. So I don't know, it just sort of happened. The process of writing the book, I always thought I'd write this book in my spare time, and that was never going to happen. I really needed to devote a year and a half. And, I think what I learned is, at least this kind of book, any of us can get a great 30 pages, right? And then at 31, I was just spent. I was out of ideas, totally out of nowhere. But this kind of book's a real team sport. So I had an agent, an acquisitions editor, an editor, a managing editor, a publisher, and then there are the people you start interviewing and spending time with. So be it, Mark Fitzloff or Cindy Gallup or neuroscientists or jazz musicians. And I suddenly realized oh, I'm not writing a book. The 15 of us are writing a book. I just got to make it orderly. I just got to put it down in a way that's sort of interesting and readable. So I don't know if that's an answer to how did I do this, but I've been lucky to work at amazing places with amazing people, and I've probably stolen more than I've created. Yeah.
Is the title of your book Talking Heads or
It is, yeah. So I wanted to call the book Talk Like Music, because obviously I'm really passionate about music, and I think we could all talk. We can communicate as powerfully as music. And the publisher said, absolutely not. People will think it's a book about music. I was like, but it is a book. She was like, no, So my wife actually goes, well, what about Stop Making Sense? I was like, yes, that's what I'm trying to say. And it's amazing. What I learned is you were not allowed to copyright a title. So I could, Hey Jude could have been the name of this book, and I wouldn't have. But any lyric you use, you have to pay for. So I wanted to use the lyric from David Bowie Heroes, "We can be heroes just for one day." That line would have cost $100,000. Right? So you learn this weird thing where you write, you can be a hero for a day. And everybody, you have to find a way of writing the lyric that people obviously know what you're talking about without actually writing the lyric. Sorry, that is an answer that is totally more than you wanted. Yeah, I love the Talking Heads, and I love Stop Making Sense. So Jonathan Demme directed it, best concert film of all time, right? He also did things like Silence of the Lambs, and I think if you look at the way he directs films, it is so methodical. It is piece by piece, clue by clue. I don't know if you remember Stop Making Sense, but the way the concert comes to life is David Byrne comes out with a boom box and starts doom, doom, and then one instrument comes out for the next song, and another, until you get halfway through the concert, he just freaking loses it. And he goes running all around the stage, and it's the first moment Demme takes the camera off of the tripod. And he does that in Silence of the Lambs when they're in the basement, and in Philadelphia in that opera scene. It is so cathartic. It's like that Space Oddity. I don't know why I'm here doing a deconstruction of Jonathan Demme movies, But I'm so passionate about that I will shut up now. Thank you for that question. Hi, yeah.
Have you seen the documentary Now episode? Have you thought that?
No.
Yeah. I think it's season 3. You should watch it.
Really?
Yeah, it's super fun.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to repeat that question. Yes.
Me?
Yes, please.
So sometimes creators have an issue where they look at someone else and say, be creative. But then when they're creative or go out the box or delusional, ambitious, like their boss is like, this is not what I expected, or this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that issue? Like if you have a great idea, but it doesn't make sense to anyone else, so you don't have the power to push it.
Right.
What do you do?
So what do you do? The question is, what do you do when you're being emotional and inspiring and delusional and creative and people are like, back in your box? Yeah, that happens all the time. And it's really disturbing when it happens at agencies amongst creative people, right? Like the old notion that we're the creative department and you're not. Like, I don't know, I guess I would feel like most creatives aren't psychotic. If you're giving them something that is useful to help them make great and powerful work, they're not going to say you're being too creative or you're not being creative enough. They just want you to be useful in telling them where to play, where to dig, where to find the good stuff. I think with clients it becomes trickier. And I would say that the most important thing is to separate moments of thinking from moments of making. So I am happy to sit with a client for hours and talk about the data and the analytics and the strategy and the bullet points and how they reposition themselves in a crowded, commoditized market. I will never do that in the same meeting where I want them to buy something amazing, right? So when I was at Fallon, we stopped doing strategic setups. Stopped. Creatives would get up and they'd say, here's the idea. And clients would feel it, and sometimes they'd love it, sometimes they'd hate it, but they'd feel it. And then we would do a strategic follow-up. All right, so remember that idea. Here's how we think it might work in the marketplace if you need to cross your T's and dot your I's. The mistake was, and I saw this when I was at General Mills, as soon as you start doing your strategic setup, all these MBA-brained people start taking notes. And as soon as they start taking those notes, they start having their arguments to justify their fear and their cowardice and their anxiety. So they go, well, you said that the advertising needs to do these 3 things, but when I look at it, it's only doing those 2 things, so let's kill it. We give clients the weapons that they use to beat up our best stuff. And I think we got to separate that. So again, I say this as a planner. Somebody asked me at an agency a couple weeks ago, well, everything you're saying means that there's no role for a planner in a meeting. Of course there isn't. Of course there isn't. There's no role for anybody in a meeting. The only point of a meeting is how do we get this client to make this awesome stuff? You start there and you work your way backwards to who should be in the room to get that job done. Nobody has a right. No one has a ticket to the meeting. It's about the work. I deeply believe you won't get to great work without the insight and the perspective of a planner. But that's a different thing from how you get it done in the real world. Does that make sense? Sorry, you sound unsatisfied. Hi, yeah.
You skipped number 2, so can you talk about action?
Oh, I did, yeah, sorry. Yeah, so number 2 is, I really like number 2. Number 2 is about action, right? And the idea is it is easier to change people's behavior than it is to change their mind. Right, again, Aristotle thinks you change people's mind and their behavior follows. Psychologists will tell you it is just the opposite. You go through boot camp and you come out more patriotic. Right, there's this, such a good one. Can I tell this? I'll tell this. There was this evangelical pastor in Texas who was really upset that marriages were failing all around him in the congregation, in the country, in the world. And he wanted to save marriage, right? That is delusional. That is a delusional ambition. It's ridiculous. But his action, what I call his inspiraction, was he said to all the married couples in his congregation, for the next 40 days, every single day, I want you guys to have sex, no matter what. If you're arguing or fight, doesn't matter. Every day for 40 days, have sex. And guess what happened? Like, the quality of those relationships increased. They did a pre-post test with some psychologists, the whole book about it. But again, the idea is a delusional ambition is daunting, but if you figure out just the thing you need to do the very next day, it moves you toward progress without it getting tangled in your thinky bits. You know, we did this with Arby's as well. Sorry, laughing, I said thinky bits and talking about sex. So we did this with Arby's as well. Like, we knew that they loved the strategy, the idea, the work, all of it. But what we charged them with was, hey, if you're gonna be about the meats, you need to innovate. You need more meats on your menu. So the next time we meet with you, we want you to come to us with 10 new proteins, 10 new meats you're gonna get on the menu. Now, agencies don't usually give clients jobs when they're trying to pitch and win their business, but we knew we needed to give them action to invest them. When people do, just like when they feel, they stop thinking. So that's number 2, sorry. Anybody else? Awesome. You guys are great. Thank you so much. This is the best.